Well, it all starts with deep listening, just really getting to know the client. And we have a lot of tools that we utilize in order to do that in a very efficient way. And I never want someone to feel like, oh, this is going to be this long, drawn out, get to know you experience. We know how to really sort of take the shortcut to really get to know you. And there's multiple ways because everybody learns differently and shares differently. Some people don't really like so much face-to-face conversation, they'd rather write it down or put it into an email. It's just this sort of innate curiosity.
We had talked initially a few months back, and I had hung up and texted my sister and said, "I think I found a new friend."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I just feel very aligned with how you approach life and design. Again, back to that holistic perspective.
In some way linked to and rooted in inspiration from natural surroundings and nature. That could be influenced by your favorite vacation destination or things that you collect. I have clients who may collect rocks or feathers or images of nests and birds or whatever those things may be.
Helping them break through their limiting beliefs about what their home should be versus what they want and how their lifestyle lends into the furniture choices or the color choices or the furniture space planning, turning one room that was previously designated as a dining room and changing it into something totally unexpected because that's what fits their season in life, just really helping them break through those mental hangups that it should be something versus what they truly want. Do you have any advice on continuing to be mindful and sustainable, but then not compromise the beauty or luxury of an item?
To invest in pieces that you can use for decades. And especially when it comes to upholstery, I love to have custom made upholstery pieces to the exact specifications that matter most to a client, whether it's the cant of the seat or the pitch and the arm height and the depth, all of the things that are going to help make those pieces feel comfortable to sit in. And I always say it's more important to make sure that we're touching upon how you feel within a space, not just how it looks. And for me, comfort is the ultimate luxury. I think it's also a good idea to look for pieces that have already been produced, that we're not custom making everything. That would be incorporating antiques and vintage pieces.
Are there some specific sustainability materials that are up and coming or new that you find fascinating?
I always try to lean towards the organic and natural materials. Always point out that if you ever spend time sitting on something that is made out of a synthetic fiber, acrylic or polypropylene or polyester or whatever that material may be, it's going to cause you to sweat and it's not comfortable on your skin. You're looking at materials like wool and even silk or cotton and linen. It can be a wool velvet or a cotton velvet or, like paying attention to the materiality of things and what you're upholstering pieces in. There's a tipping point, and there's something about what we do where we have to know all about double rubs and how to clean these pieces and what's going to pill and what gets furry or hairy with wear.
Are there a few tips or tricks that you can share with our listeners as far as making a space feel lighter and brighter or making a space feel bigger when their space is tiny?
Utilize the room that you have with comfortable and well-sized furnishings. I think one thing that people do often is to think a smaller room needs smaller furnishings, where you should really fill the space and utilize a standard size 84-inch sofa or a standard 30 to 36-inch club chair and make sure that it's going to have the depth that you would like to be able to sit in those pieces. One thing that stands out to me when I'm in a space or when I'm initially doing a walkthrough with clients is the sound quality first and the light quality as well. So that's not really something that you can touch or sit on, but it matters more to me to have those aspects addressed because there might be an echo that could be fixed and remedied by having draperies on the windows or using a grass cloth wall covering or utilizing a custom cut and bound rug or carpet in the space that still has a reveal of the beautiful hardwoods below.
Are you saying it's usually echo from the room being too large, or any room can have some kind of echo and that can kind of create a dissonance in us feeling calm at home?
I'll give you an example. We went to visit with an architect a few months ago, and I stopped her and said, I know you've been in this house for 3 years, but have you ever recognized that there's an echo in your dining room, that there's this tinniness to the sound quality in here? And she said, I never thought about it, but now that you mention it, I absolutely noticed that. And I realized that she didn't really have any soft surfaces. There's hardwood floors and a hardwood table and hardwood chairs. They might have had slip seat, but there was not a lot of upholstery. And even the window treatments were pretty skimpy. So there was nothing to help absorb the sound. And when I said, I feel like nice sized rug under your dining table would go a long way. And she had mentioned that they never really had a rug growing up because one of their siblings had made a mess and spilled something and they got into a lot of trouble. And so that was a deep-seated like trauma point for her, in a sense that she thought you couldn't have a dining room rug because something would spill, and then it was a red flag. I used to work for a design firm, and I was very sensitive to the spaces that we would go into, in public spaces, commercial spaces, or restaurants. And if you could hear the clanging and banging in the kitchen from them preparing the meals, or if you're seated in a certain area where you have the beautiful golden warm lights, over the dining areas, but then you can see the blue fluorescence in the kitchen, and just how jarring it can be to have to look at both of those at the same time. I really dislike going to restaurants that have television screens and multiple television screens. It's just like sensory overload. It's sort of a blessing and a curse in a sense, because I still speak up for my needs, and I will say, I'm so sorry, but do you mind if we switch tables, or would it be okay if I sat there, because it'll be less distracting and you'll have my full attention? It's every detail. It's not just about the way it looks. Of course, that is very important, but it's about the way that you feel, the way that the touch, the hand of the fabrics that you're sitting on, and that you're using every day, and the silhouette and the way that it sits, but also the way that the room sounds, and the lighting and the light quality, and to make sure that you're able to light all corners of the room. When we're doing a big reveal at the end of a project, we want to tantalize all of your senses, and it's smell, sight, taste, sound, and touch. And so, of course, it's going to look beautiful. We want the fabrics and everything to feel beautiful. We often talk about the space could use a rug because it needs something soft underfoot, or put a runner on the stairs so that it provides safety in case somebody slips and falls in their socks on the hardwood floors. But then inviting people into their home, we turn the light levels down in which the level that they would be entertaining. And we're serving appetizers and food and snacks, their favorite hors d'oeuvres. We put that out on the kitchen island. We're serving champagne or raspberry lemonade for the children, and we're playing soft music in the background, their favorite music, because we figure out what that is as part of our lifestyle questionnaire. Or we'll put on standards. We'll have Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, and Frank Sinatra playing in the background, because that calms people and it resonates with them.
Is there a design element or decision that you feel like the most significant to amplify that feel good energy?
Everything having a place, having everything in its place, mise en place. I love the idea of having everything in its place, and having a space for each thing, and then minimizing the clutter, reducing things that no longer bring you joy. I remember helping an elderly client. We just started decluttering the whole house. She had carved wood mallards and little figurines and dolls and all of these things around the house that people had gifted her and given her over time, that came from her children and her grandchildren and great grandchildren. And I said, what do you need an entire cabinet full of these dolls for? Or why is this shelf filled with carved mallards. It's like, well, I had one or two once and I liked them and people saw that. And so they started gifting them to me. And so then she said, I really only like these three. And I said, well, why don't we just keep these three and then find a new home for the rest? And she said, you know what? I really like that idea. And when you become aware that this is the reason that you're holding on to your books because you think it makes you appear smart to other people, and I realized that even in my own book collection, I haven't read a third of them. I got a great recommendation. I dropped it into my cart and I placed the order and it arrived. Then it ended up in a stack next to five other books that I've started reading. And, it's like I've read half of so many books. When a client is deciding that they found a bedside table that has a glass top, and I think, you know, I know how I live. I have a bottle of lotion on the side of my bed, and I love a glass of water next to my bed. And in the winter months, to help with the humidity, I sleep with a humidifier. I know that this glass is going to be a nuisance for you to try to keep clean on a regular daily basis. So perhaps we go with something that has a high gloss painted finish, or a lacquered vellum or something like that. That's much easier to clean. It's not going to show the watermarks, or the little smear of lotion that might get on there occasionally. Of course, most people have cleaning rituals or perhaps housekeepers and things, but still, like, a glass dining room table is not always the smartest if your children are using that every day.
The ease of use, and you mentioned peace of mind. Those are two very easy reminders and takeaways for anyone who's listening today. I think we get overwhelmed so much with our daily busy schedules. A lot of times, just clutter, it just becomes a way of life, whether we want it or not. But to edit with the concept in mind of what's ease of use, like what's something sustainable and doable for me to clean up or to have to help me stay organized. I think that's really important. And then what gives me peace of mind.